This is now a gentleman of a big utility of the company called EON, and his name is Thomas Buss. Please come on stage. Welcome to Ecosummit.
Thank you. So, thank you very much. My name is Thomas Buss. I'm Vice President of Innovation, Scouting, and Investment for EON. And really what I wanted to talk about is a perspective of, let's say, this venture capital community from the perspective of a strategic investor like EON. I'll introduce EON. I think probably most of you know EON. It's not such a small company. We have about 72,000 employees, 122 billion euros of revenue, and about 35 million customers. And the reason why I talk about that is because of the scale of the company. And that's something that I'll come back to as being quite relevant to, let's say, the mutual collaboration with startups. I'm sure that some of you have heard what it is that EON's looking to do to really transform itself in light of some very significantly changing dynamics in the industry. And it's very committed to a new path, splitting the company into two. On the one side, the downstream business, the one that's really focused on delivering energy solutions to customers. And on the other side, a new company that we're creating to really spin off to our existing shareholders, which is focused on those upstream assets, or the generation portfolio. And I really highlight this because it's a fundamental belief of the company that the company needs to change and really do things quite differently in the future. And the EON that you'll know in the future will indeed be very different than it is in the past. And as a result, there are a number of initiatives that are clearly quite important in that strategy. So if we look at that strategy of being, let's say, a cleaner, a better energy system, a better generation mix, let's say, distributed through the network, and really that transformation from a utility to a solution provider or an energy services provider, there's a significant challenge there. And we, as the technology and innovation community, the R&D community, the product development community inside EON, really take that challenge in hand and have a number of activities to try and help that company manage that transformation. So first, it's about detecting the disruptive change, those new product services, business models that are different from how it is that things were in the past. Second, it's about really trying to understand those innovations, be it now product or service, in the context of EON and its customer base. So really exploring, let's say, those technologies, the investment opportunities that we might see. And third, really paving the way towards how it is that these technologies and business models can be deployed inside the company. So really preparing EON for a different business in the future. I mean, we screen a number of different sort of macro trends, and this certainly isn't exhaustive, but it gives an indication of the flavor of the types of things that we think are relevant to, let's say, that company, that more future-oriented company. Be it, let's say, those trends around the rise of the individual, health and well-being orientation, different patterns of, let's say, consumption, to, let's say, a new socioeconomic environment, diffusion of power, meaning democratization in some type of way, urbanization, sustainability challenge, clearly limitation of resources, different technologies that are coming out in that environment, the impact on the climate, and in general, just the acceleration of technology, so the quite shorter innovation cycles, the ubiquitous intelligence and computing power that's there. You know, these are all macro trends that to a certain extent EON, let's say, has an appreciation for, let's put it that way. And we really try to take advantage of that within the TNI network. And I give some detail about how it is that we, as let's say, that innovation network, are really oriented internally. So there are really three fundamental building blocks to TNI. The first is, let's say, that central management in some type of way, so our central corporate venture capital activities, our innovation portfolio, or let's say the management of the significant funds that we're deploying through our R&D activities. Then, in parallel with that, we have the innovation centers, and those are really market-oriented businesses, well, not businesses, but entities that are aligned with the business. So groups that are really focused on innovation, but that are co-located in markets close to customers. And then we have what we call project executing units, which are really groups of engineers that really do the hard work of testing product, testing innovation, and starting to pave that path towards new product introduction. I'll go into each of these in a little bit more detail, and then I'll come back to why it is that I think it's relevant to share this with you. So the first, the innovation centers. It goes without saying that there's a range of activities that we're looking at, different things from generation to energy storage, energy intelligence and analytics, to, let's say, those distribution optimization opportunities, to what is probably the largest area of our activity, and I'm sure that we'll be having conversations with each other about customer-centric solutions, be it now B2C-oriented solutions or B2B-oriented solutions. There's a lot within that space that we're looking at. I refer to the project executing units, again, really to reinforce the scale of our activity. We have about 100 engineers and project managers that are looking at these technologies, at these business models, and trying to figure out how is it that we can bring these to customers. So again, it's the scale and breadth of EON's, let's say, commitment to this area, also how it is that we're, let's say, well, in a committed way, trying to advance our position. And this is where we come to strategic co-investment. So our challenge is really, how is it that we take advantage of all of that that the big company gives and try to deploy that together with startups? We look at this from two perspectives. One, the equity side. We make a financial investment into a company. But equally, we also feel quite committed to investing in the co-development of projects and initiatives, things that will together somehow advance the introduction of these products and services into the market, and that really being a core of our strategic co-investment activities. I'll talk a little bit more now about how it is that we do strategic co-investment in EON. So why strategic co-investment? I mean, what's in it for EON? This is a little bit self-serving in some type of way, so you'll forgive me. I'll come on to the why is it relevant for startups in a second. But for EON, it's clearly about how is it that we connect ourselves to those markets and technology trends that are out there? How is it that we can find those disruptive, well, again, technologies and critically business models that are relevant to EON in the future? And I give you two examples: Solar City and the Nest device. Those clearly are wins in the energy environment. We clearly need to be very aware of those wins, but be aware of them very early in their cycle, so we can digest how it is that we could either take advantage of those, or maybe how it is that we as a company are to a certain extent threatened by those. The second aspect is how is it that we bring those external innovations into EON as a company, and really try to increase the rate of deployment of either new technologies or, again, new business models. I mean, our engagement with First Fuel in the States, our engagement with O-Power are examples of how it is that we've invested in a company, but equally how it is that we've really focused on deploying those things throughout the wider EON network. The third aspect is how is it that we do things really from a commercial perspective. We're clearly interested in, let's say, getting success together with the startup that we're working together with. And Sungevity is a great example of how we've invested but equally signed commercial arrangements to try and, again, deploy through that wider EON network. I give an example of how it is that we de-risk projects. That's probably more relevant to our climate and renewables activities and our upstream generation, but equally strategic co-investments can sometimes be relevant to de-risk technology and legal risk. Well, I've alluded to it, the economic upside. We also want to participate in the success of, let's say, things that we're bringing to a company in some type of way. So the economic upside is certainly relevant to us. So I've talked a little bit about what's in it for EON. That's a little bit of a narcissistic perspective. Why is it that it's relevant for EON? Really, what's in it for the startup? Because I think this is probably the most important thing. First, there's knowledge. I mean, okay, EON's been caught out by a number of different changes and dynamics in the industry, and certainly, we are that big utility that is an incumbent, and we're not going to make excuses about that. But equally, we do have a lot of knowledge about how it is that different markets are evolving, different regulatory structures are evolving. We're present in a lot of geographies, more so than well, actually in Europe, any other utility. Equally, we have a lot of capability around how is it that we bring products and services in scale to market. So how is it that we manage the manufacturing side? How is it that we manage the market introduction? How is it that we manage the customer services, those elements, when you're talking not about hundreds of customers, but about millions of customers? And that knowledge is absolutely relevant. So it goes without saying that that's something that's valuable to a startup. The second thing is a validation. So I mean, the EON stamp does mean something to the external environment, be it from the technical perspective, i.e. EON's willing to work together with this company around this technology. It clearly has felt comfortable that that technology is somehow de-risked to a certain extent. The second is that external referenceability. So we are a relatively large organization, as said, with brand credibility, and we can, to a certain extent, help younger companies with that brand challenge, particularly when you talk about offering solutions to customers. The third side is the financial strength. So we're a long-term strategic investor. We're interested in working together to try and exploit the return potential of a new business model, a new technology. And we'll be there for the next round of investment if the model is good, if the success that we're seeing is good. So we have that financial strength to participate in, let's say, the future of a company. But I think the real critical thing, and the thing that, to a certain extent, if you're in the startup environment and, let's say, looking at who is it that you engage with from a strategic investment perspective, is that commercial rollout potential. I mean, we do have those channels to market. We do have, let's say, the access to one of the largest customer bases in the utility sector. And we, let's say, through the commercial arrangements that we might arrive at, well, we potentially can arrive at large volumes relatively quickly. And this certainly is relevant to companies that are in the question about how is it that they actually get their technologies and services to scale. Again, I'm not going to say that we have all the answers, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. But we do have something to bring to the table. And as said, we firmly, and particularly from the venture capital team's perspective, believe that we can help take a company from a valuation that looks a certain way, a business plan that looks a certain way, and with EON's involvement, actually, juice that investment potential a little bit more and see a better valuation coming out of it. So what types of investments is it that we're looking for? Well, I think first, we're looking for companies that are a little bit later in their stage of development. We have gotten involved in some A rounds, but really we're more about the B and C series financing. We have other initiatives inside the company, the Agile program that some of our colleagues will be happy to talk with you about when we're looking at seed opportunities. But really we're more about how is it that we can bring these, let's say, products and services into the business and have a meaningful impact. We also tried to do that together with external investors. We feel most comfortable when there's a VC working together with us. And equally, some of those VCs feel quite comfortable when we're involved as well. The products and services, well, it goes without saying that those have to be relevant to that strategy, that downstream vision that we have, more about energy services and customer solutions. In terms of financials, we have an average investment of about a 3 to 5 million ticket size, trying to get a minority investment. If you're doing your math, that means you might be able to arrive at what valuations it is that we tend to be looking for. But we clearly have a focus for what types of investments are most attractive to us. And from a governance perspective, we really want to live our engagement together with the company, so we are looking for board representation in that type of way. So what is it that we've done to date? Well, we've invested, actually, I think the EON portfolio is actually pretty healthy, and we certainly have significant ambitions to invest more in this space. We have a number of solutions that are in that downstream, that residential and C&I focus. So be it Termondo, that you'll be hearing about shortly. We have some other investments in that consumer space, Leo and Greenwave from the States. First Fuel, a more B2B-oriented company. O-Power, I think most of you know about. Sungevity, again, a B2C play that we're very committed to, have a lot of expectations for. We have some things related to ECNR and, let's say, that climate and renewable side. So Cubotics, a solar company. AutoGrid, which is really an analytics platform, that is sort of a data play that is relevant to a lot of our activities. Some investments in the distributed energy side, and we have Bloom Energy and Orcan, a company based out of Munich, again focused on the C&I space. And then on the smart grid side, a company that we're quite excited about, Space-Time Insight, doing a lot of things together with us on the grid. We also have invested in a fund manager, the Wesley Group in the States, and we've done that in a very committed way, primarily because we see that there's a lot of opportunity to, work together with that investment community to try and understand the trends that are happening out in San Francisco, and as a result, you'll see a lot of the companies that we've invested in are actually based out of the States. Not to say that we're not also active in Europe, it's just that, again, the first move we felt was certainly very relevant to be committed to that, or connected to that venture capital community in the States. So I hope I've given you an overview about, let's say, what it is that EON looks for, how it is that we manage our strategic co-investment activities, that context. I think the Termondo conversation that you'll be hearing about shortly will certainly give you maybe that other perspective about some of the companies that we, to a certain extent, are working together with. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Good. Thomas, are you interested in more fund investments? Because I know there's a lot of VCs in the room that are actually fundraising, and everybody is going for the big corporates. Because you didn't do yet a fund investment in Europe, right?
That's right. And so we're happy to have the conversation, very happy to have the conversation. The question is clearly, what is it that those funds, to a certain extent, bring to EON in that way, either from a network perspective. Growth capital is one of those things, particularly when we look at hardware-oriented solutions. Is it that any of these funds are looking at, let's say, that interim, that bridge financing space that's a little bit of a gap? We're very open to conversations, regardless of, let's say, an expectation of outcome. So very happy to have conversations, absolutely.
Yeah. And in your portfolio, I see quite a lot of American startups.
That's right, and we're looking to change that. So the team has a healthy engagement with a number of companies here. So I know that there are meetings happening all over the place. I'm meeting with a number of people here as well. We're very keen on making sure that our portfolio is geographically balanced. At the same time, look, let's admit it. What's happening over in the States is exciting. It's really cool. We're happy that we've been able to bring some of those companies into Europe. We think that we can add value there. Equally, we're really happy to find companies that are over here doing neat, innovative, very different things, because the market here is different than the States. It goes without saying. So, let's just say we're open to any conversation, so without a prejudice of an outcome.
Yeah. And do you have a question for Thomas? Please raise a hand and wait for the microphone.
All the way in the back.
Okay, I've got 2 questions. I'll stick to one.
Yeah. Perfect.
What is your throughput time? So if if you invest in me, how long does it take before we get to revenue or joint revenue?
Well, I think that clearly depends. And as I said, we're minority investment. We certainly would not want to be investing in a company that was exclusively reliant on revenues from EON. That would be an unhealthy investment of the highest degree. So, we're looking at developing projects together in some type of way, but we're a minority investor. So, to a certain extent, I'd throw the question back at the company and say, look, let's work on something together and be as aggressive as we possibly can. So let's talk about a year or 2 to see, let's say, concrete revenues. But equally, I'm curious to see what the startup's doing in terms of other revenue sources outside of just EON.
Okay. Another question? Do you have a situation in your portfolio where you are not the only utility invested in a portfolio company? So I think O-Power probably has more than one.
That's correct, yeah.
And other startups?
So I think we have, and also particularly when we look at some of those companies that are more US-centric, there clearly are also fund of funds that utilities have invested in. And we're, to a certain extent, comfortable with that dynamic on an ad hoc basis. And equally, again, it really depends upon how impactful that company is going to be to our success in that way. Yeah. How much we believe in that company. And if we believe in that company in a really strong way, and there are others that also believe in that company, look, then we're open to have let's say, those types of conversations.
Yeah. So if there is a startup that has EDF as an investor, it's not a killer?
It's not a killer, but,
okay.
But there's a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, totally open. I like it.
Yeah, good.
Handshake. Thank you very much. Clicker, I need.
You.
Yeah.